Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and today is Thursday, which means it is Third Pillar Thursday. And Third Pillar Thursday actually represents the third pillar of Exploration Thursday. And the third pillar, always have to do this little introduction, in tabletop gaming deals with the environment and exploration and setting about the wild and crazy things in your world. The first and second pillars, of course, correspond to combat and the social interactions, respectively. And so when we use the third pillar in our games, we are talking about not just the narrative portion of traveling very far into vast and uncharted locations in your world, but for me, it's also using the environment itself as a storytelling tool. Wow. And as well as basically using the environment to interact with players in a mechanical way. And so today, we've been our subject that we've been talking about all week, and we do this every week. We take sometimes a simple subject and maybe a subject that on its surface seems rather simple, maybe even boring or having a limited scope, and we deep dive into it and stretch it out and add it into our role-playing game experience at the table. Or as it is now, online, where it seems most of the gaming is happening. So, all week we've been talking about the weather, and yesterday got inspired when we were talking about on World Building Wednesday, where we were talking about just designing a world in which the weather itself is so dynamic and so strange that it changes the very foundations of the world and changes the way, that we interact with such a location. Well, now let's talk about how we're going to incorporate it as a fully developed entity in terms of the third pillar of exploration. Now, of course, we want our players to go to, again, new and uncharted locations. And when it comes to weather events, even in our own world, we know that there can be lots of destruction. People will flee particular neighborhoods. Heck, they'll even flee whole countries to try to escape the damage and the danger that is happening. We know that in our own past, that archaeologists and historians have found the remnants of a peoples who have been surprised by the unexpected downfall, the unexpected maelstrom of particular weather events. I'm looking at you, Pompeii. Also, when it comes to typhoons, tsunamis, earthquakes, forest fires, brush fires, tornadoes, etc., we know that not only is there the initial attack of nature against us, flood zones and things of that nature. People must leave and flee to particular areas, maybe higher ground, maybe underground when it comes to Tornado Alley and things like that. And so we do have a reason to have plenty of locations to design your prototypical dungeons. Even in modern day to science fiction, you do have looters, people's homes that are vacant. Some of the homes could be damaged. They could be submerged, on fire, have been on fire, abandoned, and electrical power on and off, or maybe it is downed power lines. Fire hydrants broken and spewing out water. Subterranean sewage now being exposed to the public because it has flowed out from underneath with floodwaters out to the waist deep waters that are flooding into people's homes and living rooms. Basements flooded as well, so you have those things to play with. Not only that, but you also have the authorities quarantining particular areas where there are people who want to go back to their homes but are unable to unless they are either under guard, or surveyors must come in to survey the damage. And so homes being knocked off of their foundations. Those are really great, and I think even dynamic locations can use to create a dungeon, especially if you want to move past what I consider to be static environmental conditions, and so forth. So a pier with about 8 sailing vessels that are stuck in frozen, the frozen lake, or have been dashed against the docks, or one or more is caught on fire because it's been struck by lightning and there's still torrential rain or something. A lot of that, is possible when you want to create a dynamic dungeon. Now, when I say dynamic, what I mean is that it's not just a bunch of hallways with creatures sitting in it, but when you use weather is a great tool to have in your back pocket if the pacing that you feel is getting a little slow, if the players feel like you can almost feel the waves of boredom coming off of your players or something, and you could very much use the weather as a backdrop, and then basically insert the weather because you've already foreshadowed the events. Floods, tornadoes. We were talking about massive tornadoes and storms and cyclones and stuff, right? So you could absolutely positively include it in the game. And what I mean by this is, let's say, okay, let's use sailing ships. And a massive storm came by. A bunch of merchant vessels have tried to come into port. A massive storm has come into the region and just devastated this coastal town. And you want to design a dungeon. Now, the dungeon could be going out on the broken docks, and then the player characters have to investigate a number of these sailing vessels that were dashed against the shoreline. Maybe some of them were ripped from their moorings, and now they're half sunk out in the bay. Maybe there are others that have stacked on top of one another. A sailing vessel could have been even thrown onto land. And so instead of having a flat plane, you could design a dungeon that has angles to it. Broken rooms. Some of them, the rooms collapsed, where you have players have to duck down or slide between tight spaces, or both. Needing to remove their gear to get into and out of particular locations in these ships. I've only seen this once, and I know it's been done plenty of times, but not as often as I would like to see. But having a dungeon, a location that is turned on its side or tilted to the side, is a unique method to have a dungeon as well. For example, you could take a tower and knock it down off of its moorings and have it fall on its side, so that you have windows facing directly above the players' heads and windows and doors facing below them, under their feet, in which you could reskin a pit trap as a visible door or a window or something. And you know me, people complain that the push or shove maneuver in 5th edition is useless, and my point is, like, it sure is useless if the environment is basically nothing. It's a void. It has no effect. It's just a green screen. But if you have a place to push or shove someone or something, then great, right? So also, when it comes to weather, whether something is burning, something can collapse, something is moving, a sailing vessel that the players are inside of, that the waves might just be, maybe high tide comes in and shifts the ship maybe further out into the bay, or pushes the uncontrolled vessel towards land and a rocky shore. It could be filling with water, so the players have a time limit, like, we need to get into that 5th ship and get the merchandise out of it, or we're going to drown. And of course, having the water levels start to increase and such. So and to me, that's just the basics. We're just starting with that. So when we also talk about the weather tends to move and shift and change over time. We even talked about the eye of the storm yesterday. So it's very possible for you to have torrential rains, thunderstorms, high winds, thrown debris, thrown after battering the player characters to get to a location for them to suddenly be dropped into the eye of the storm where those things are no longer happening, for then either the eye of the storm to move or for the players to have to then escape with whatever MacGuffin they have to escape out through the other end of the storm, again buffeted by winds, blizzards, I don't know, hail, thrown debris. What was it? The video yesterday posted about a reporter being hit by a stop sign and stuff. Right? How many times have we seen reporters in storms getting buffeted by rain, snow, electrical cables, people sliding by in the background or whatever, being knocked down because of frozen, icy weather and whatnot? Yeah, heck yeah. Magic the Gathering card, Shark Typhoon. Of course it's Shark Typhoon because you can't say Sharknado. But yeah, and as ridiculous as the movies, the Sharknado series, because I know a ton of you are fans of the Sharknado series, and I don't want to offend any of you because you take it so seriously. As ironically funny as that series is, in a role-playing game, it's actually kind of a sweet idea. Now, mind you, you don't have to have sharks or tornadoes, but the idea of throwing a creature into a weather event to have that creature just become even more dangerous. Yesterday, the idea of using will-o'-the-wisps or willow-wisps, right, and having them riding lightning bolts to get from place to place, throwing them into a storm. It makes perfect sense to have a real-life tornado inhabited by multiple air elementals, right? There's a real tornado, and then there are air elementals in the tornado, probably feeling pretty good about it. And why the hell wouldn't it even be an air elemental's lair, right? Wherever you have creatures, whether they are mundane or arcane, they tend to instinctively remain in the areas that most benefit their ability to do what they do. Sharks tend to not jump onto decks of boats, but they can. But for the most part, they swim in, ocean waters. And so it's not just the fact of a shark attacking you, but it's a shark attacking you and trying to drown the hell out of you, right? It's the giant alligator that wants to do a barrel roll after it grabs your thigh and pull you down into the swampy waters. And so adding that additional difficulty of the environment onto what you are doing, tacking it on, is the thing that makes the environment that much better. Rickard says safe passage across a river that constantly shifts, or they have to jump across debris to get to the other side as the flood gets worse and worse, of having to wade across while having to dodge the debris. Oh, hell yeah. Raging rivers are sweet. There's a reason why a lot of times there's a reason why tropes are used over and over again, right? And it's not due to unoriginality. It's because tropes are shorthand to let people know what's about to happen, right? Sometimes it's very difficult. If you try to make your own unique races, try to come up with 12 unique races for your world. After a while, it can get a little difficult because the players are scratching their heads like, I don't understand. What's the name of the race again? What do they do? You said they're warlike, and you're like, well, they're not exactly warlike because they have this unique feature, and the players are like, I don't get it. But if you say orc or dwarf, they have a unified, codified manner in which to expect how they act and how they're portrayed. And the same thing is done with the weather, which seems to be underutilized in most role-playing games, if not all of them, unless you have something like Fate where you have aspects, or you take a game that has things in it like spell features, creatures, traps, so, a random spattering of environmental effects, and you take that and you run with it. Then when you tell a player there's a raging river, floodwaters are rising, there are semi-safe locations you can jump onto, and you've got to wade across this location with bits and pieces of people's homes flowing downriver. Yeah, kind of cool. And now, how would you adjudicate it? I've got my ideas on how you could do it, but I'll give you some examples in just a minute. Yeah, Tesla's like Frogger. Hell yeah, yeah. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at you like not just Frogger, but what's another great game that uses the environment? You have oh wow, I just Legend of Zelda has a ton of puzzle environmental effects. What's her name? Oh yeah, the original Pitfall. Yep, tons of that. Using the environment. I thought the television show Lost in Space uses the environment to great effect for a science fiction area. Yeah. Now, Mr. Spenzar says in an old game, the draw distance was masked with mists. Over time, I found okay. In an old game, the draw distance was masked with mist. Over time, I found that when the mist came, there was very strong and demonic things that spawned when the mists came. I call this phenomenon the demon's mist, and I've translated it into my RPG world sense. And yeah, I mean, why wouldn't a creature attack when the heavy mists or smoke or torrential rains or something come in? Why wouldn't they attack? At midnight. Why wouldn't they attack when the floodwaters arrive? Of course they're going to do that. Of course there are certain creatures that are going to attack during the worst weather events because the creatures themselves are unaffected. And some creatures might be put into a state in which they don't want to be, which the weather is affecting. For example, they could be panicking, migrating, worried about their loved ones, meaning like cubs or eggs or nests or particular havens or something they live in. It could be territorial issues where they don't want to leave. The animals are in a state of frenzy because they're both trying to mate or keep their territory protected at the same time while trying to escape the horrors of the weather and its events and stuff. Omen says, I'm reminded of the movie Crawl. Yep. Gaz says, this chunky boy coming out of the darkness. Hell yeah. And of course, when it comes to all these things, by us immersing ourselves into the environment, it gives us a great idea on what to pull from. For example, again, just because players have the ability to see in darkness doesn't give them true sight, right? If your vision in darkness is 60 feet, 120 feet, that's as far as you can see. Maybe you can't see that much further into the dark, the underdark. You can hear the crashing of water, but you can't see where the waterfall is at. If you're in a dark cave and there's some kind of tentacle creature in a lake, and you're like, well, we're just going to walk around the outside edge of the lake and avoid the tentacles, and then the aquifer from the roof breaks open, and then that small lake in the middle of the Underdark starts filling with water, and now the tentacled creature now has an easier ability to get to the players because the solid land they're walking on starts to eliminate as the floodwaters start to rise, and the centralized waterfall in the top of the cave starts tumbling down. It's again, using the environment to increase tension, to eliminate analysis paralysis, to make where the players are located dynamic, I think is something undersold, and that's why I'm your self-appointed third pillarist. I am the dictatorial leader of third pillarisms. So yeah, Caius, hey, what's going on there, man? Caius of Galantry says, I love the idea of gaming across a flooded river. A tsunami has a coastal town, a dam breaks, etc. Yeah, okay. Even just using our typical classical four elements, earth, air, fire, water. Water is much more dynamic than we give it credit for. That absolutely, changing environments. Yeah, hell yeah. Players they go across a floodplain where there are dozens upon dozens of divots in the ground filled with water. And each of them may be its own Hazard, maybe the place is muddy. Okay, no big deal. All of a sudden, the torrential rains come, or a dam, like you said, a dam breaks, Caius, or the monsoon season and it's flooding and it's constant. And so if the environment keeps changing, for me, I feel like the environment is better than using traps. Traps are like gotchas, right? Traps are usually good. They're good things on one side of the table and terrible on the other side, because traps are usually one and done. They usually tend to be gotchas, like, ha ha, you fell in the pit, right? As a game master. Or the players are like, ha ha, I missed the pit. And the game master's like, they're avoiding all my traps. And then they're one and done. And, it's pretty much like, it's like a tease, right? But the environment, first of all, you're already telling your players what the hell's going to happen. Hey, guys, I'm, Gaz in the Discord, who's a wordsmith, right? You are using descriptors to tell the players what they're experiencing, whether it's the rolling dark clouds on the horizon, or the mist rising from the grounds after last night's torrential rains or something. So you're already foreshadowing the dangers that are going to come along. Then when they get to the raging river, it makes perfect sense why there's a raging river that you just placed in front of them, because of the storm weather and the broken dam and blah, blah, blah. And they already knew they were coming into flood season, And of course, you play with this with the earth and with air and all that kind of stuff. Now, Rickard says, FF12 fit. Not familiar. Also has the mist thing with the weird stuff happening where the mist gathers, and then, of course, we have the movie The Mist as well. Yeah. Again, don't harp on darkness as being an easy thing that players can get around. There are all kinds of things that limit people's vision. A dense jungle, smoke, fire. Smoke and mist. Hell, fire limits vision. Collapsed buildings, tapestries, torrential rains, all those things limit the distance at which players are able to see, or a blizzard even, or even, there's, that's a great image too, yeah. There are these pseudostorms which occur in dry regions called habobs, or habobs, or haboobs, the walls of dust which roll across the plains. Owen says, I can attest to that in my area. Yeah, there's a ton of stuff we can already pull from. Sandstorms, all those things can limit vision, as well as we talked about things limiting sound as well. I don't want to miss his comment. Gat says, I like the idea of regions of the desert where the heat is so intense it causes hallucinations. The area is saturated with arcane energies, which gives life to the player's hallucinations. Yeah, kind of like how the beholder hallucinates other holders into being. You know what? What a great encounter to be solved by, say, getting to an oasis. The players must consume enough food and water to prevent the hallucinations, which are real, at least real to them. That'd be kind of interesting, especially if they get attacked and other people come by and don't see the hallucinations, but to the player characters is absolutely positively solid and real. Yeah, I like that. A great way to add in, say, the undead and ghosts or fey creatures without them necessarily having the origins they normally would have. Ghosts in the desert caused by hallucinations don't necessarily need to be necrotic or created by like a necromancer or something. But I love that. I love that picture, because dust devils and storms and fog. I'm in central Ohio, but if I travel just a couple of 4 or 5 hours down into Kentucky and Gatlinburg and stuff, there's the Smoky Mountains, and they're called the Smoky Mountains because damn near every day you wake up when the sun comes up, the moisture has settled into the valleys of the mountainous region, and so there's always fog every single day. And there's a reason why. You can have, and these are just normal mundane things. Add some magic in there, some science or whatever. Hell yeah. Yeah, Gaz says Mad Max did these really well. He sure did. Yeah, Fury Road. Don't drive your car into a sandstorm, right? Um, Dead Man says The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild has a mechanic where the monsters respawn under the blood moon. Yeah, there might the environment. Solving a situation might not be possible simply by hitting it about the head and shoulders. Maybe it's just a matter of getting from one place to another. Where again, the weather is a perfect example of throwing in alternate wind conditions, or ways to solve the situation other than it attacking you and you attacking it. Um, Yeah, Spenzar says, getting to an oasis, or more fun, making peace with your demons. Yeah. Who's to say those hallucinations aren't created, spawned by your guilt or your fears or your animosity. Yeah, I like that. You hallucinate a beast which killed your lover, and you have to make a series of handle animal checks or diplomacy checks to calm the beast and bring the troubled memory back inside yourself. I'm gonna embrace that with a warm hug. I'm liking that. I'm liking that. I'm liking that from a narrative aspect, and I'm also liking that from a mechanical aspect as well. Because who's to say that that creature doesn't respawn later on when the player is dehydrated out in the desert, right? Who's to say that doesn't happen? Um, Rickard says using the environment to increase tension. Quote, as the wind picks up more and more, that eerie feeling it has been giving you becomes more and more palatable. As it seems to be building up to its crescendo, you notice that the wind doesn't sound right, and you strain to listen. As you strain to listen, you can hear millions of voices in the wind whispering, no chanting more and more fervorous as the wind builds up ever closer to its inevitable climax. Hell yeah, hell yeah. And of course, the way that description sounds, maybe at first the wind, you say, well, the wind is just giving you disadvantage on your ranged attacks or something. Then the wind, now you have to maybe start making athletics checks or something, or even deck saves to not get knocked down or blown away, or lose some of your very lightweight items lost in the wind. Or maybe then at some point it starts throwing debris around and you got to worry about that. Okay, and now now you start adding on to that. Now you can't hear, and so it's very difficult for you to communicate with your PCs and whatnot. Yep. Ooh, I'm gonna have to. Wow, that snuck up on me. Ooh. Spencer says if you kill the hallucinations, you take some stat damage that you have to recover over a few days. If you tame the hallucinations, you receive slightly longer lived boons. Hey, kitty. Yeah, that might be an option in terms of especially if the thing spawned is basically from you. That there's this it could be an emotional link between the thing and you. I like that a lot. No, Omen, I honestly am not feeling too good, but yeah, Omen's like coughing people scare me. Yeah, sorry, kitty. Yeah, I'm gonna have to let you down. Love you too, kitty. He sure is. Yeah, sure is the cat checking up on me. Yeah, give her some head scratchies here. Sorry. Spen says it's something that you need to know your players to accomplish, but bringing their guilt beast out after they tame it, protect them in a dire encounter. Your guilt beast coming out to protect you. Ooh, and that's a really unique way to offer the characters a boon in an encounter instead of just dumping like treasure on them, instead of Monty hauling them and just killing the beast and taking their treasure, maybe the thing does follow you. Dances with Wolves is, in a certain kind of way, is like that, right? Where the main character is kind of crazy like and like martyring himself, going out there into the wild to eventually somewhat befriend the wolves on the plains. Yeah. Cameron says, "Ooh, that's awesome. You could vaguely describe the mirage then ask the player what they think it is, then make that the real thing. Yeah, how that's what we call player agency. That's where we as game masters need to check ourselves and go like, okay, listen, I'm not the most brilliant person. Two brains are better than one. And if I've got four players in front of me, why wouldn't I utilize their brain power to create something, right? So if I say I want this encounter where the hallucinations are something extremely personal to the player characters, I don't need to make it up. I just ask them literally at that moment and go, oh, shit, I remember, watching this show with this dude with dreadlocks and he's talking, you know what, I'm going to add that in my game. All right, you tell me what you see. You tell me some unresolved issue and then shape that encounter around it. So hell yeah, I love that. And look how far we moved away from tornadoes and thunderstorms from yesterday into like deserts and hallucinations and heat waves and sandstorms and things, always. And of course, using the weather to build on what's happening, I think is a great method. Whether it is first it's fog and then maybe it's rain and then maybe it's high winds and then there could be mudslides, which you could just reskin a mudslide as a collapsing ceiling or rock slide or something like that, right? Just call it something else. Find the statistics to one thing and reskin it, rename it, reuse it. Of course, don't tell your players that you're doing it. Just do it within the confines of the gaming balance and mechanics, and you can't go wrong with that. Rickard says, or you can go with a more horror path and have the wind not affect your body, but your mind more and more. Ooh. Hey, has anybody found a trap that requires, I don't know, intelligence saves or charisma saves? Not too many of those, but if giving the weather a personality that you can interact with is a pretty unique method of overcoming some or even many of these environmental hazards, right? Especially if you are using a Princes of the Apocalypse type of thing where the elemental forces are powered by the gods, powered by genies or something, powered by sentient elemental forces, having it affect your mind and things like that. But anyway, going on to what Rickard has said, so perception might be the first things that get clouded, then magic doesn't work quite right, and as they start to hear the whispered chants, they need to start making will saves to move from shelter to shelter. Having the wind chant the name of whatever PC is listening, so each hears their own name. I love that. Also put some tension into the players, and guess what? And Deadman says in Eclipse phase, the Iktomi ruins would fall into that category. In terms of the idea that something is speaking your name and calling out to you and drawing you forward. And like what Rickard has said, took the same exact encounter and then made it dynamic by changing how you interact with it as it starts to get worse and worse. And then, of course, the players will hopefully they're feeling the same tension at the table, like, whoa, wait a minute. You're telling me that I'm hearing the voices of the people I've killed in my ear? And they're like, yeah, they're whispering around you. And then all of a sudden you see, as the blizzard gets worse and worse, you see their shadowy faces in the distance, almost as if they're formed out of the snow and the ice or whatever, and you start to describe it to the players. And then maybe this is a way for you as the game master to, this is going to sound dirty, but to go after the players in a manner in which they may or may not be prepared, right? So if everything in the environment is all con saves, then of course the only players that are going to have any success are those with the highest constitution, right? But if you go after them, using all their statistics, all of their capabilities, maybe it's an intelligence check to navigate through uncharted territory. Maybe it's a charisma check to talk down those hallucinations that are becoming real in this Fey-touched region. Maybe it's a strength check to move debris out the way because about to collapse onto the party because trees are being uprooted because of the high winds and the mudslides or something, right? Going after them in different manners, in different ways to allow different people to shine, to exercise some of their capabilities, to always keep them on their toes so that they are not hyper gaming their character. There's plenty of people who make videos where they are making level 20 characters that are optimized. And the problem I see with that is most of that optimization is done in a vacuum, right? They're going to optimize the character to do the most damage. Well, great, but I'm going to tell you that if you optimize your character to do the most damage, you're not going to have very much fun in my games because I use the environment. And you can't hit the environment about the head and shoulders, right? Ricker says, if the players say, don't tell me it's the voice of X, don't answer them, just smile. Like, yeah. The player's like, oh shit, wait, what? And then of course, when you do something like that, maybe they're guessing at who it is, or maybe they still survived, and when you introduce something of that effect, maybe just maybe a player introduces something into the game that you weren't expecting. I don't know, having a social interaction in the middle of a weather event while having combat. Did we just go full circle and include all three pillars in our tabletop game? Well, hell yeah, why not? Why not have you listen, even in some of our greatest action movies, they have some conversations while they're kicking ass and taking names, right? Let's not limit ourselves, and the environment can absolutely be the same way. Now, using some of our mechanical parts, we have skill checks, we have saving throws, we of course have hit point damage. Not every game uses the same system, but most games have mechanisms to increase or decrease difficulties. Of course, Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition has the aid system: advantage, inspiration, disadvantage. And so you can narratively explain why someone has advantage or disadvantage on certain aspects or actions based on the environment. Fog might be different than walking across that rope bridge or crossing that raging river, for example, right? Crossing the raging river. Sure, the character with the highest perception can see everything above their waist, but down in the raging river, a little hard to see things down there, right? When a piece of debris or a tentacle or a rock dislodges and traps their ankle in the raging river as the floodwaters start to increase, So we can do all of those things, using lots of conditions instead of straight up hit point damage. Works. Conditions: deafened, blinded, restrained, paralyzed, grappled, unconscious, incapacitated, stunned. Using those kind of conditions as the results of failures when it comes to skill checks and saving throws, because that means that players may have to change their own tactics to maybe save one of their player characters, one of their allies, and that, of course, is a great thing, to put all the choices, the dangers in the player's hands. In the Discord, says thoughts on creatures that represent certain weather and whose encounters carry environmental tags, tag along, such as thunderbirds. I love the idea of thunderbirds. Native American mythic beasts which are heralded by the storms. Hell yeah. Please tell me. Oh, you didn't put the phoenix. Phoenix and deserts, I think, go together really well. Dust devils, minor hurricanes full of dust, which I would rule are associated with low-level devils who are expected to make deliveries, either of information or an objects or objects in secret, and thus they conjure these tiny storms to mask their passing. You're always adding these little one-liner descriptions that make me that elicit a larger world. So thank you very much for that, Mr. Spenzar. Tidal waves, which are the ocean goddess' chosen servant, riding onto the land as walls of water are thrown against the land to announce her displeasure. How many times have we seen that? Giving give honor to the sea god or goddess, or our sailing life is going to be cut really short. Have we ever decided to have the sea god or goddess, Neptune or a naiad or whatever the case, get pissed off? How many times have we done that? And could we do that with water elementals? Sure. But we can do that with some environmental effects too. Oh, I don't know. Strength or dex saves not to get tossed into the water. Using the drowning rules, although I think the drowning rules are kind of piss poor, but whatever the case might be. Yeah, all that stuff. Rickard says, Mr. Spencer says, I made up the last two. It doesn't matter. Listen, ideas aren't theft, they are homages, especially when they're used to good effect. So do not feel like you need to apologize or explain anything. Rickard says a seasonal flood of a riverside community happens each year as the Kraken migrates up and down the river. Yeah, it's Kraken season, right? The Kraken doesn't even need to be the enemy; it just happens to pass by, and the what is it, the Sword Coast or something, gets slammed by high tides and floods and stuff like that, just because of the seasonal floods and whatnot. Yeah, why not? Why not? Maybe the Tarrasque isn't as bestial as people think. Maybe it's just a giant kaiju that moves from one place to another, and it causes earthquakes, and it elicits volcanic activity, and I don't know. There's a titan so tall that when it walks by, it disrupts the meteorological environment, causing storms to happen or something, just because it walks from one place to another or something. Hell, cloud giants and storm giants playing, bowling or having arguments, or drinking grog up in the clouds or something, right? Cameron says, don't forget about catfish. They can drag in things over 3 times their size. Some species are really big, and one is massive, and they are disturbed by floods. Yeah. How many times have we seen worms come out of the ground because of flooding? Now imagine that worm is a purple worm that's 60, 70, 100 feet long with a poison tail, can swallow things whole, right? Like you said, catfish, salmon swimming upstream, of course, alligators traveling across land to go from one watery source to another source. Oh shit! Picture. Oh man! Fishermen in northern Thailand netted a 646-pound Mekong River catfish that may be the largest freshwater fish ever recorded. Holy shit! Friendly alligators. Yeah. You can pet them once. But like Mr. Spenzar is saying, the idea that the weather benefits things in your world, the dust devil idea, right? That they're literally devils hiding themselves in the dust to send one message to another place. Maybe that's an encounter that's not even a combat encounter. The things moving from one area to another comes across the player characters, and then what do the player characters do? Do they question this thing? Do they follow it? Is it more important for the thing to get from one place to another than to have some kind of encounter with the player characters, even if the thing can, backslap, smack around third level player characters because it's some kind of like reskinned or reflavored ice devil as a dust devil, right? But just because something is, and this is my problem, I think, with game balance. It is very easy to introduce extremely high CR rated characters into worlds. Just don't have them fight the PCs. That's all, right? They're going about their own business. A Rakshasa that meets a first level group of player characters just wants to make a deal with them. You know, that Dust Devil that comes across third level player characters, maybe it's on a mission, or maybe it warns the player characters to stay away from the region that's controlled by these devils that live in the desert, right? Maybe it's just telling them, you know what, I'm letting you know, I'm doing something important here, but just let you know, go the opposite way, because if you come here, you're going to be victim to me and my people. You know, maybe they're just warning them, or maybe they try to convince them of something, or maybe they lie to the player characters to put them into a trap, or they question the player characters to find out maybe there's more of them coming. You know, who knows? You know, I don't know. What do we usually call that? Social interaction, right? That's how you have high CR creatures. Social interactions. You know. If a creature is arrogant enough to know that it can dispose of the player characters, maybe it's too bored, or maybe it's beneath them to crush a couple of first level characters just because it's a CR 18 dragon, right? Mr. Spenzar says, I actually rode up a swamp, which is host to nearly dead kraken, which was laid low during a war between the gods in ages past. The swamp water has a coppery taste. Oh, I see where you're going. And sent to it, the whole of the region stinks of rot. The kraken's tentacles stretch out into the swamp and are often thought to be the roots of a massive tree that gives life to the swamp at the center. Yeah, using the bodies of dead creatures. Yeah, no, I love it. I hate it. Some people cut open the roots and partake in the sap of the tree and experience strange visions of the war of the past and more. Yeah. Dead things bring about decomposition. Decomposition can come from carrion creatures like, I was about to say leeches, maggots and flies and insects and birds. And oh my God, the smell, the heat given off, the possibly dangerous chemical effects given off. That kind of thing. Guys, just let me know. Someone lost audio. Let me know if the rest of you have audio on any of the platforms, whether it's YouTube, Discord, or whatever. Okay. Thank you very much for that. It could be regional as well. Listen, there's a lot of us stuck home, so I wouldn't put it past a lot of places to have disruptions in their. Hey, listen, this show is being simulcast on 3 platforms, the audio and video. I'm freaking surprised I'm punching out 1080 video to all 3 sources. So yeah, fingers crossed. I'm amazed. Okay, so using the weather, we have ourselves, of course, static effects. Static effects. Go into the area, thing happens, right? A static effect could be, go back to that swamp, right? A static effect. Go into the swamp, you're bitten by bugs, you take 1d6 piercing or poison damage or whatever. Those are static effects. They're good, but they don't, because they are static effects, they're not very dynamic, right? Cameron says, the molds and fungi growing on the corpse could be hazardous. Yeah, mold, oozes, fungi? Hell yeah, mold. Listen, I'm an old grognard. I remember, what was it? Brown mold, black puddings, gray ooze, ochre jellies, green slime. Come on, you guys. I know there's some that I'm not mentioning. Gelatinous cubes, although I feel like it should just be gelatinous goo. But whatever, right? I think even in they had a ridiculous ooze that was man-shaped in the Fiend Folio. It was shaped like a humanoid. It was walking around on 2 legs, whatever. Anyway, but yeah, they could be creatures, myconids, and vegapygmies are a great thing to use, as well as Tyrant jelly? I don't remember a tyrant jelly. Where'd that come from? Is that a 3rd edition thing? we'll get into what you're talking about there, Rickard and Spencer. But along with static effects, you can have stimulated effects. Maybe the word stimulated maybe brings up ideas in your head that might be a little bit too bad, but they could also be called if-then situations. Going back to the mold and fungus, if players approach, then the mold or fungus spews out spores, right? So you could have a region where, if the players approach, make noise, start a fire, walk through the flowers, walk upon the abandoned roof of the collapsed building, walk on the treacherous docks that have been slammed by the ocean waters, right? It's an if-then. If you approach, then something happens. If you disturb, then something happens. If you cast a spell, then the creature, the blind magic sensing creatures will sense you, right? It's that kind of thing. You can also have timed events. Every 3 rounds, the storm surge hits. Every 3 rounds, a bolt of lightning comes out the sky. Every other round, more rocks or mud slides down off of the hills. Every time an initiative comes to 10, you have to make saving throws or get buffeted by debris picked up by the storm or something like that, right? It's a thing that might be timed out. Cameron says the timer jelly is one of the Pathfinder first bestiary. It's beautiful. That's in the eye of the beholder, right? Rickard says hailstorms come to mind for elemental hazards, the big ice ball variety. Listen, there have been hailstorms that have destroyed people's cars and homes and stuff. Amp that up to fantasy levels, and you can have basketball-sized hail or larger bombarding the area. Yeah, exactly. And so, again, player characters see Big Beast. Player characters want to hit it about the head and shoulders. Player characters think, okay, listen, I could stand out in the open and get my ass killed by hail while trying to fight the trolls, or I could run for cover while my allies are shooting something through the sky from a safe distance, which is smarter. I don't know. And of course, using the weather, some people might. Does it mean that some people will shine and others will be limited? The answer to that, of course, is yes. And why? Because some people should shine. Some characters and players should shine in certain situations. Maybe it's not a smart idea to go out into a hailstorm, but maybe it's a great idea to go beat the creature about the head and shoulders during heavy winds or derecho or a hurricane or something, when that archer, before who was kicking ass, maybe it's not too smart for the archer to do the thing. Gaz says, anyone have mages try to capture storms? I imagine if you ever found yourself in a pinch, whipping out a cataclysmic hailstorm to cover a retreat sounds like something a wizard would do. And again, talking about world building, having living storms that can be captured. Maybe the reason the world is besieged by storms in the first place is because of those damn mages trying to do the thing, right? And your commoners are like, oh, there go those damn storm mages again. If they just stopped, we wouldn't have these storms to have to rely on the mages in the first place to take care of us and whatnot, right? Thank you, Dead Man, for the 5e ooze monsters. Apocalypse ooze, aura ooze, black pudding sea. Well, using creatures to turn them into environments is a good idea. A black pudding sea, I haven't clicked a creature, but yeah, a sea made out of black pudding is pretty nasty, right? Fall off the deck of a ship in a black pudding sea and see what happens, Yeah, blood beast and blood ooze. Blue gel. I've never seen blue gel. I know brown slime. Choo-choo? Or, wow. Damn, there's a lot of them. Flechette slime. Thank you, Alexi. Head and shoulders, monstrous flakes, I tell ya. Yeah, because I always say that. Beating things about in Head and Shoulders. You see the Knight doing a commercial handing over some prel to a troll. Like, you might want to use this. It prevents flakes coming off of your body, and the troll's like, it sure helps. Thanks, buddy. Ching. You know. Cameron says in the eye of the beholder, quick kill the beholder. Ooh, maybe the two are linked together. You could reskin or reflavor beholders to be storm related. Yeah, hell yeah. Maybe change their eye stalk powers to be flavored like weather events and stuff. Ooh, or do beholders spawn? Is it the beholder that spawns the storm, or is it the storm that brings the beholder? Yeah. maybe storms are caused by beholders dreaming. Yeah, you know what I mean? Makes them feel good. Gaz says dealing with a creature to which the weather in the vicinity is directly tied to its emotions would be interesting. Like when it's sad or afraid, there's a terrible downpour. Yep. When it's furious, the rain is racked with lightning and bellowing thunder, which matches its cries. Contentment clears the skies and brings a pleasant humidity like a summer's day. Yeah, hell yeah, slow clap on that one, right? You know, sure the players could open up a can of whoop ass, but maybe the bard is like, maybe we should talk to it. Maybe we should talk to the thing that's causing the thing to happen. You know, earth elementals creating earthquakes because it's pissed off, right? Why not talk to it? Why not even temporarily alleviate its pain or anger or frustration or something like that? Like maybe the wizard destroyed something that this elementally attached creature is causing a thing. You know, an earth elemental causing earthquakes because some wizard stole a very powerful gemstone from its earthen haven or something, right? Who knows? Yeah. Yeah. And like, Rickard says, I'm sorry. Gaz adds to that. Suddenly, non-violent options become more viable because it will decimate the kingdom if you make the mistake of simply trying to kill it. And I love that so much. Sure. Now, listen, the players should be given the option to kill the thing, but maybe killing the thing while successful is the absolute wrong thing to do. You know, it's a Pyrrhic victory, right? Players come back to a community devastated, and the player characters are hated for, you know, time immemorial, right? They're enemies, and the players are like, "What do you mean? We killed the thing?" And they're like, "We didn't want you to kill it. We wanted you to solve the problem." Two different things in gaming. Killing things and solving problems should be two different things. It's the triangle that I always tend to refer to. Yeah, Rickard says, ooh, that reminds me of an old cartoon called Pirates of Dark Water, which had dark, oil-like sentient pools of evil bubble up to the ocean's surface to attack and warp the people it touched. Ouch. Yeah. Alex says, the Eye of the Storm. You wonder where the Nothic came from. Yep. Eye of the Storm is circular. That's enough for a bard. Bard seduces it. I don't know if I want anybody to make artwork with a bard having pleasurable interactions with, like, I don't know, beholders or things like that. Oh man, Cameron F says, "Oh wow, living storms sound awesome. I could see them being viewed as gods by some people and menaces by others. Both in my voice is going in classic Greek mythology. Neptune was a bane and boon to most of humanity. So why not both? We often don't think of the gods as being capricious or self-absorbed or focused only on their domain to the exclusion of all other domains, right? So I'm thinking both. You know, Neptune, honor me and I will give you safe passage. disrespect me, and I'm a beat your ass kind of thing. Yeah. Dead Man says default beholder has one eye with lightning bolt spell. Yeah. What's the other thing? The eye tyrant and the specter, I think, are micro beholders, and you could reskin, reflavor, reuse other creatures as micro beholders as well. Ooh, look at that. That's cool. Rico says, sometimes killing something is a solution to a problem. You have a goblin problem? I kill the goblins, no more goblin problem, right? Pet Ogre says, you're obviously not Norse. Yeah. But even so, remember, they create their own problems because of that, the Norse gods killing things and temporarily solving the problem, right? Like Beowulf and killing Grendel, which was the son of a powerful creature. And of course, killing the thing might be the only way we could at least absolve ourselves of our own guilt and such. Yeah. The Norse. If you can't stab it to death or ticket it to subservience, then it's beyond the kin of gods or men. Yeah, we're gonna take this creature and bend it over. Pretty nasty. I love it. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for giving me so much to think about and having so much fun. And of course, you guys make me look brilliant. So I appreciate that as well. I want to thank you guys. I want to thank my moderators over here on my left, Dead Man and Tesla, as well as all of you out there. Thanks for taking a little part of your day out here to be part of this show. Yes, below, everything is true listed below the video. Yes, simulcast to Twitch, YouTube, and Discord, Monday through Friday live. You're welcome. Have a great day. I will see thee tomorrow on Future Friday. Thank you. Have a great one. I'll see you later. Bye. Yes, you are.